in at number one. No changes in the top four. Seattle, the Broncos, the Patriots, and the Rams. So I will ask you this. Now that we've seen the playoff matchups, Frank, who has the best shot at the Super Bowl?
I think it's Seattle. I mean, how could I not say Seattle? They're my number one team. They're 2 home games away from the Super Bowl here. I think they'll face the Rams in the NFC Championship game, though. The Rams are the one team that when I did these rankings, I was like, I know they're better than the 4th best team. I really, truly in my heart think they're the 2nd best team in the NFL, but they struggled down the stretch. They lost some games. They didn't even look great against the Cardinals in week 18. You had Sean McVay after week 17 saying, my starters got to play because we're not playing good football. So I kind of had to keep them at 4, but I do think we're in for a Seahawks-Rams trifecta here. We're gonna see them a 3rd time in the NFC Championship game. But yes, I think the Seahawks are the clear favorite. They were the best team. I don't think there's any question about who should be number 1 in the final power rankings. This was a team that they've lost 3 games by combined 9 points all season. They blasted the 49ers in week 18. This is your best team in football. That defense is going to be really hard to beat in Seattle. 2 home games away from the Super Bowl. The answer has to be Seattle at this point.
Let's look at New England because I feel like I keep hearing they haven't played anybody. Who have they beaten? Look at their strength of schedule. And look, it's not wrong. They have played some rinky-dinks, but they've looked really good while doing it. They've beaten who's on their schedule. How do you think that could come to effect in the postseason?
I don't really think it does. Yes, it matters to some extent, but there's not some AFC power out there either. Like, everybody talks about the Bills because of Josh Allen. The Bills have had their moments where I'm like, this Bills team ain't it, aside from their superhero quarterback. And we talked about this last week on Inside Coverage when Jory was on. We talked about the her MVP vote and her decision. And what I said was, and I'll stick by this, strength of schedule is a college thing because you could play in the Mountain West, right? And you're just playing Fresno State every week. That doesn't happen in the NFL. The easiest NFL schedule is not that much different than the toughest NFL schedule. Yes, there's a difference. I get that. But it's not something that just disqualifies. It's not a disqualifier for Drake May for MVP. It's not a disqualifier for the Patriots making a Super Bowl. Like, you still have to, you go 14-3 against NFL competition. You're doing work. And I think it's weird how it's gotten overblown this year. I think a lot of it is because people who want Stafford to win MVP need to make an argument to justify that pick over Drake May. And then it's never been an issue for MVP of, strength of schedule. I've never heard this in my life, ever. I follow the MVP. I've followed the NFL for 40 some years. I follow MVP every year. I have never heard this kind of discourse about strength of schedule. It's just people want Matthew Stafford to be MVP, so they're making this argument. That's the whole point. So no, my mini rant there, Caroline, I don't think strength of schedule matters as much as we're making it out this year.
The college football playoff committee has just infiltrated all of our minds and all things football.
It is. It honestly is. I think that's part of it. I think it really, truly is because there's just not a James Madison. This is not one of those scenarios. The Patriots still played 17 games against NFL competition this year.
So to that point about MVP, if you had an MVP vote, who would it be?
I say that. I still think I'd go Stafford. I just think he had the better year overall, but I'm fine with Drake May. It's one of those years, rare years. You guys know me well enough. I have an opinion about everything, even though I'm wrong a lot of times. I don't really have an opinion this year. I'm fine with either one. I think it's a total 50-50 thing. I slightly lean Stafford just because week in, week out, he just blows me away with how well he's playing. Maybe there's some narrative in my head of, this is last chance, and he had the injuries in August and he overcame that. I hope not, because I usually try to leave that out of the conversation. I slightly lean Stafford, but it's a 51-49 type of conversation.
Let's stick with that theme of postseason awards as we get into our next group of power rankings. Jacksonville at 5, San Francisco 6, Houston 7, and Chicago at 8. Of these 4 teams, is the coach of the year coaching one of these teams?
Absolutely. I still think it's Kyle Shanahan. And I don't, I understand the arguments for other people. Mike Macdonald, right? If you want to make Mike Macdonald your coach of the year, okay, that's fine. He coached the best team. I think the coach of the year should go to best coach more often than it does. I think that you have, Ben Johnson did a great job with Caleb Williams and bringing that team along. But I think the best coaching job this season was by Kyle Shanahan. I know that they lost their final game. I don't even care. for that team to get to as far as they've gone with all the injuries they dealt with, I thought Kyle Shanahan had to do not just the best coaching job this year, but the best coaching job in many years. I give the 49ers a ton of respect for getting to where they went, and to being that close to the number one seed in the NFC blows me away with all the injuries. To me, it's still Kyle Shanahan. I have not wavered on that at all.
So how do you feel about the Jags, who are your fifth best team, but they're taking on the Bills in the playoffs, a team that many of us are afraid to just pick against because we all know Josh Allen's still Josh Allen?
It's fascinating. I mean, I don't know if there's a hotter team in the NFL than the Jaguars, and we don't talk about them a lot. They're just one of these teams that's in one of those markets that just gets ignored a lot, and it's just the way it is. Like, that doesn't happen often in the NFL, but for this team specifically, it's just not a huge market. It's not a lot of buzz. It's not a lot of, so we don't talk a lot about the Jaguars, but they've won 8 in a row. The second longest winning streak in the NFL. Texans have 9 in a row. And they're playing well on both sides of the ball. They're really opportunistic on defense. Trevor Lawrence playing the best. We've both been critical of Trevor Lawrence, but we've seen a different quarterback the last 6-7 weeks. It's like Liam Cohen's system just clicked. It just is happening for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he accounted for, I believe, 38 touchdowns this year, had a really, really good year. So I'm leaning to Jaguars just because I think they're a better team than the Bills. But yes, it is scary to go against Superman, right? Like, he is Josh Allen's, I think, the only dude in these playoffs, both sides, where you're just like, I know his team's not great, but I don't want to spend 3 hours going against that dude. He can carry his team much further than it deserves to go. So that might be the most I think the Bills are the most fascinating team in the playoffs because they could go one and done or they could win a Super Bowl. I'd believe either way.
So look at your list then, because you have the Bills in your next grouping. If we look at 9 through 12, and not a lot of change this week, obviously, the Bills are at 10. If they do have an early exit, do you believe that Sean McDermott should be on the hot seat?
I could see it. I understand it. I understand the Bills saying, what happened this year? Like, the defense kind of fell apart in many ways. They just don't. They're just a flawed team. They're a very flawed team. And you say, the Patriots have passed us. They're not going to be easy to catch now. Like, the Patriots still have some room to grow. Like, the Patriots, I think Drake May's going to get even better. He's only in his second year. We got to forget that, right? Like, he's going to get better. They still have a lot of money to work with as far as adding guys in free agency. They just had a very good draft. So I think the Patriots have surpassed them. And if you're the Bills, you say, what are we doing? We're backsliding a little bit. If it's not happened yet under Sean McDermott, is it ever going to happen? I think that's a fair conversation. Now, I do think that the Bills would have to look and say, who are we really going to hire? Who's out there? Like, I don't know that necessarily John Harbaugh is going to be out there or whoever. Like, is the next coach you're getting better than Sean McDermott? I don't know. The answer to that question is yes. So that has to weigh on them too. But I would understand it if there's a conversation about McDermott if they go one and done.
One conversation that I don't necessarily understand, maybe you can explain it for me, Frank, is the Green Bay Packers. About LaFleur.
Yeah.
Will LaFleur come back? Will there be a vacancy in Green Bay? And look, I know 9-7-1 isn't necessarily the sexiest record in the NFL, but the Green Bay Packers have been consistent playoff contenders under his watch. So is all of this conversation about Matt LaFleur potentially being let go in Green Bay or, not extended, is there validity to that? Do you agree with that?
I don't. It blows my mind. It really does. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Matt LaFleur's a good coach. And whoever you hire next is probably not going to be better than Matt LaFleur. Look at his career record. Look, he's not perfect. No, he hasn't won Super Bowls yet. I get that. But is your team better off firing Matt LaFleur and going and hiring Clint Kubiak? Maybe, but we don't know. Like, it could be much worse. Clint Kubiak could be Adam Gase. We just don't know. Matt LaFleur's a good coach, period. Yes, they're 9-7-1, and that's hugely disappointing based on their expectations and how they started the season. There's some nuance there involved, though. I mean, you lose your best player. You might lose Tucker Kraft was their third, fourth best player? Like, they lost him too. They've lost a bunch of guys to injury. Matt LaFleur didn't overcome that. Again, Kyle Shanahan, coach of the year, like that was rare. That was rare what he did. Usually when you lose some of your best players, you are going to struggle. This whole Matt LaFleur discourse, it's weird. It's just strange to me. It's like, look, I don't cover college football, but I did a little bit back in the day. It's this SEC type of mentality of, well, we lost games, we got to fire the coach. Like, really? You don't have to. Like, you don't. I promise you. Like, keeping a good coach just because he's lost a few games is absolutely fine, because Matt LaFleur has won a ton of games, and he's the best coach for the Green Bay Packers. If they fire him, I will rake them across the coals because I just would not agree with it whatsoever.
All right, let's go to our next group of teams. We've got Pittsburgh at 13. 14, we've got the Carolina Panthers, 15, Minnesota, and 16, the Detroit Lions. And look, I know, Frank, I watched these two teams play head-to-head on Christmas Day. Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, in your soul, believe the Vikings are a better team than the Detroit Lions?
No, not honestly. But I did have to give respect. They beat them. Right? They swept them. Like the Vikings swept the Lions. So I couldn't justify having the Lions ahead. And a little bit of this is just the Lions had no business missing the playoffs. Like this was actually the metrics really like the Lions, And I think it was just a disappointing season for them. So I had to ground them a little bit, right? Like I had to punish them a bit because this was a very, very just a flat season for the Lions. And you can't do that. You're still in your championship window. You just wasted an opportunity. I didn't like that from the Lions. And I will give respect to the Vikings. Everything around a quarterback position allowed them to win, I believe, their last 5 games to get to a winning record this season. Pretty impressed by that. I really was. Like they came alive late in the season and showed, hey, if we just get mediocre quarterback play, but even a little bit below average quarterback play, we could be a very good team. So it was just a lot of this was just the Vikings sweeping the Lions and somehow winning a game when they had 3 net passing yards and all that kind of stuff. But yes, I think the Lions are a prime bounce back team in 2026. You're going to hear that all off season. You're going to hear all off season of Lions are going to be back in the playoffs. They're my sleeper team to come back because their metrics were just off the charts. They profiled as one of the 5 best teams of football if you look at the advanced metrics.
I just want to remind you, Frank, that you and I together over the summer, I told you repeatedly, I thought that entire division was going to be a little less than everybody else thought. God, it feels good to be right. What about this one?
Walk your walk.
Steelers. Like what? No, yeah, swaggy walk. Tell the world. The Steelers when they get their asses kicked by the Texans, and I believe they will get their asses kicked by the Texans. Is Tomlin gone at that point?
I don't think so. I think that's a Mike Tomlin decision more than a Steelers decision. I would understand if Mike Tomlin is like, why am I doing this still? Well, I'm getting people are chanting to fire me at home games when all I've done is post winning seasons. I would understand that. I do understand the Steelers fans' frustrations too, but I don't think the Steelers are sitting there saying we got to get rid of Mike Tomlin. That's never been their MO. They just won a division. They just made the playoffs. Let's say they even lose, and not like the Texans are going to put up 42 points. So it'd be like a 21-3. That's the kind of blowout you'd have. Would you fire Tomlin at that? No, I don't think so. But I could see Mike Tomlin saying, I don't know, maybe I want to see the grass is greener somewhere else. Maybe I want to try my hand with the Atlanta Falcons or the New York Giants or whatever it is, because he'd be the number 1 candidate, no question about it. So I don't think the Steelers fire him, but that doesn't necessarily mean Mike Tomlin's back as their head coach.
Yeah, and I do think that we're going to see a delay in the hiring of new coaches until we find out what's going on with some of these legends. Which brings us to my next. Yep.
Harbaugh.
Let's go to Harbaugh because the next section is you've got 17 through 20, where you have the Falcons at 17, the Ravens down 3 at 18, the Buccaneers, and then the Colts. So, we'll go through. We've already seen the Falcons fire their head coach. The Colts are not going to make any changes. The Ravens, should Harbaugh be back next year?
I don't know. There was something really off about them all season. And then the reports came late in the year that Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson's relationship might be a bit tense and just everything going on. They know more than we do. Let's put it that way. But just watching them on the field, even as they lined up for that game-winning field goal, I was sitting there writing, obviously. I got to post that story right as soon as the game's done. But in the back of my mind, I was like, he's missing this kick because that's just how the Ravens season has gone. We've all watched the Ravens this season. They are just not what they should be. Like there's just something weird going on there, and maybe it is time for a change. But the thing is, we go back to this: who do they hire? Who's better than John Harbaugh? Like this is not a great year where there's a Ben Johnson out there, right? So they have to weigh that. But I would not be surprised if they kind of mutually part ways here, just because again, this season was such a disappointment. Everything seemed to be off. The whole Lamar, John Harbaugh stuff, I don't know what's going on with that, but the Ravens do. So it wouldn't surprise me. Let's put it that way.
I mean, when we're talking about disappointing teams, there's a long, long list in the NFL. The Chiefs, the Lions, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Buccaneers are on that list as well.
Yeah.
What do the Bucs do this offseason?
I'd start by firing Todd Bowles, to be honest with you. And I don't say that in any mean-spirited way. I don't have anything against Todd Bowles, but when you have a season like that where you lose 7 of your last 8 before winning the season finale, they're barely beating the Panthers at home, by the way. When everybody got healthy, this was not like we talked about Matt LaFleur a little bit ago and how he lost everybody and he struggled. The Buccaneers got healthier as the season went on. Mike Evans came back. Bucky Irvin came back. All these guys who had been out for them the first half of the season came back, and they got significantly worse. And I know there was a prominent report a couple weeks ago that how dare you mention that Todd Bowles might be on the hot seat. Well, because all he's been doing is winning a mediocre division for a few years. And this year, when he had a chance to run away with the worst division in the NFL, he lost it 8-9. Baker Mayfield's play fell off a cliff. Like that team looked bad, like bottom 5 bad in the last half of the season. So I don't think it's a personnel thing. I think they got a lot of good players. That roster is pretty good. If I was Bucs ownership, I'd be very, very frustrated with how that season went. And I do think a coaching change is absolutely justifiable in this case.
Let's get to our next group of teams. We've got Dallas, another one on the list of disappointments this season. We've got the Saints at 22, the Bengals at 23, and the Chiefs at 24. We just learned that the Cowboys moved on from defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. Your initial reaction when you first heard that news?
My initial reaction is Jerry Jones, if he's serious about winning, and I've been ranting about this all morning on social media, if you follow me, if Jerry Jones is actually serious about winning a Super Bowl, and that's his top priority, he gets on the phone with Brian Flores' agent and say, how much is it? It gets a top coordinator in the NFL this year with $6 million. He says, you want 15? Here you go. You want 20? I don't care. He's Jerry Jones. There's no salary cap for coaches. I think Brian Flores is a top 5 defensive coordinator. I think most people would agree with me. There's no downside to say Brian Flores is going to be a free agent. I don't know if everybody knows that. Brian Flores' contract is up after this year. So he's free to sign anywhere. And Jerry Jones should just make the Godfather offer. How much is it going to take? And he gives you your ridiculous number and you say, I'll add $1 million onto it. I'm Jerry Jones, right? Like, why wouldn't you do this if you're actually serious about winning a Super Bowl? Now, the reason is because owners like to play nicey-nicey with each other. And there's this unspoken collusion to keep coaching salaries down. Because if you paid coaches what they're worth, look, if Dak Prescott's worth $60 million, Andy Reid's making about 18, I believe. Andy Reid should be making about 60 million. You could argue he should be making more. So it's just they've kept the salaries down for coaches. But here's a rare instance where I think Jerry Jones should just say, Flo, what's it going to take? You got head coaching offers. I don't care. I'll pay you more than a head coaching job would. And that's how the Cowboys should fix this defensive coordinator issue. And they absolutely will not do that because that's never been Jerry Jones' MO.
Let's go to the next segment here. You've got 25 through 28. You got Miami, Cleveland, Washington, Giants. These teams all suck. But the Miami Dolphins down 5 here, finished 7-10. In case you didn't see this, Frank, an interesting note because Tua Tagovailoa was asked how he would feel if he got a fresh start somewhere else. And his quote was, asked for a fresh start, his quote was, that would be dope. I would be good with it. I don't remember the last time I saw a starting quarterback under contract being like, oh, no, a fresh start would be dope. Like, what do you make of this?
And I understand it. I mean, everybody knows what happened when he got benched late in the year. It's over. Like that, it's done. The Miami Dolphins just going to have to suck it up. And he started thinking about, okay, what happens here? Well, I think Tua's going to be, they're going to maybe try to trade him. That's not going to work. So he's just going to be available at some point. And you start thinking about who might he go to? What might happen with Tua? And you think about Arizona's going to need a quarterback. I don't think Kyler's back there. I wondered about Minnesota. Actually, because, they could do the Indianapolis thing where they say, yeah, we got J.J. McCarthy, but we're bringing in our version of Daniel Jones, which would be Tua, if Tua doesn't get any offers anywhere else. But I think the one interesting team here is the Steelers. I assume Aaron Rodgers retires. Maybe not. He kind of hinted last week that, I'm going to have offers. I don't know if I'm done yet. So maybe Aaron Rodgers comes back because he did play pretty well this season, given his age. But if he doesn't, the Steelers don't have the type of draft pick where he can take a quarterback. There's not going to be a lot out there. Maybe their next ride on the merry-go-round is Tua Tagovailoa. It would make sense. Tua has led the NFL in passing yards before. He has led the NFL in yards per attempt and all this stuff. He became a different quarterback 2 years ago. I think it was a concussion that he suffered against Buffalo at the start of the 2024 season. He's been a different quarterback since. But if you're looking for a reclamation, if you're looking for a next Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, that type of story, I think the Steelers could do a lot worse than Tua to try him out and see if they can salvage him.
All right, let's move on to the Toilet Bowl, the Dante Moore Bowl, the Fernando Mendoza Bowl. Yeah, unfortunately, Fitz. Unfortunately, we do. We got 3 out of those 4 bottom teams in your rankings, Frank, all have head coaching openings. Which one is the best between the Titans, the Cardinals, and the Raiders? What looks like the most attractive job for a potential head coach? I think don't Cardinals make enemies with Fitz.
No, I already have. He's blocked me. I can't even text this guy anymore. Like, he's just big time to me. No, he hasn't. We text all the time. And I usually try to avoid any Raiders talk because it's never fun. I will say that the Raiders are not the worst opening. I think that's the Cardinals. I don't see any bright side with the Cardinals right now. Like, what is it? Your best players are a tight end and a strong safety, which are low value positions in the NFL. You have no quarterback. You have no history of winning. You're in a division with Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and Mike McDonald. Who wants that job? So the Cardinals are not in that conversation. I went back and forth between the Titans and the Raiders. I went with the Raiders over the Titans when I ranked these, just because they do have the number 1 pick and it's kind of a clean slate. The bar is very low, Fitz, with the Raiders. If you win 6 games, you're like, oh, wow, you doubled our win total. So I just wonder, but none of these openings are good. If I'm a coaching candidate and you kind of whiff, I think the Falcons are the best one. We argued about that in Inside Coverage yesterday. Those guys think Andrew and Charles don't think it is because of the quarterback situation. Giants are a good opening. If you don't get one of those jobs, you're a good coordinator or a good candidate this offseason. You're looking at the other ones saying, oh my goodness, Arizona, Vegas, Tennessee, that all bad owners, all bad history, all bad rosters. It is very desolate out there if you are a top head coaching candidate, if you don't get the Falcons or Giants job.
Frank,
if you like to golf,
delight for us.
Arizona's a great option.
They got nice golf in Vegas too. Come on, you've been glorious to us all year. So I figure give you this last time during the regular season you're going to join us. I'm giving you 1 minute to just wax poetically about something I know you care a lot about. Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be traded by the Bucks. This is our last chance.
Oh my goodness!
Do you have anything you want to say to everybody that tries?
I'm a Milwaukee-born guy and a big Bucks fan. Went the game for the 2021 Finals, one of the best days of my life. And I will say this: Giannis is probably going to be traded. Fine, I get that. I have also heard every day for 9 years that Giannis is going to be traded. Everything that happens with the Milwaukee Bucks always goes back to, well, this must mean he's going to the Heat. Why? Like, why have we covered Giannis this way? He is a guy who's been very loyal to a small market. He stayed there. He said, I don't want a super team. I'm winning a title in Milwaukee. Posted 50 in a clinching game. We should be celebrating that instead of every single day being like, well, Giannis is going to the Knicks. The Bucks must accept this terrible package of players for Giannis because they got it. He obviously doesn't want to be in Milwaukee. It's embarrassing how he's been covered throughout his career. So when he gets traded, and he will, I get it. It's business. Don't do any victory laps. You've been predicting this for 9 years and you've been wrong. I'd be embarrassed by that. Embarrassed. So Giannis, thank you for your loyalty to Milwaukee. When you go, salute. The statue will be waiting for you when you come back. But yes, he will be traded and no victory laps. None. Zero.
I see. That's why we had to let you do that. You're the best, my friend. Be sure to read the power rankings. And I think you're going to be, we'll do more with you. It's just, you've been with us every week this season. We appreciate all the joy you brought to our regular season. Happy New Year, my friend.
Love it. Love you guys. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Frank. Appreciate you.
From Frank, as always. At the top of the list, the Seattle Seahawks. At the bottom of the list, shockingly, the Raiders. I don't know what he has against my favorite team. The top riser, Atlanta.
It's a Pete Carroll sandwich.
And the top
they're at 1-32.
Yeah, it is. Oh my God, you're right. It's the best and the worst. So it's the best of times and the worst of the times. Top faller, Miami down 5. So Caroline, certainly plenty will change during the course of the playoffs, but interesting to see how these played out.